And hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Daily Political Tarot and Astrology here on the Black and Orange channel. It is a fantastic day because Andre's here.
Hi, everyone.
From Proactive Astrology. As a matter of fact, I think, do you have a bubble? Yes, you do. So, Andre's here, and we are here to talk about Happy Eclipse. And that is happening this afternoon. And I had an odd question about the eclipse, but we'll get to that. So, so we're going to be talking about the eclipse. We're going to be talking about what's happening with the U.S. chart. In a few days, we're going to get a little bit of a grinding energy with the Moon and Mars square Pluto. So, yeah, when the god of war and the god of chaos kind of get on each other's nerves.
Yeah. Right.
So, but anyway, is what's going on with you? Do you have anything planned?
I'm just I'm doing the same thing I've been doing for the longest time. My own astrology has been pretty challenging, and it feels like a little bit like being hoisted on my own petard, because I'll be, talking about it and even teaching in the classes some type of thing that affects something in a certain way. And then I noticed it really affecting me and not really knowing what to do with it. But actually, in a very interesting way, the first eclipse seemed to really help me. I noticed this with these, well, also eclipses are new moons and full moons, but the full moon eclipse, I noticed the buildup was really difficult. And then right as the eclipse was happening, it felt like I broke through. I got to the other side, which I've noticed before in the past, that eclipses can be really helpful because they really intensify the energy. And so they're not necessarily bad, but at the same time, you can see them in other contexts, like, for example, the Charlie Kirk incident that has eclipse written all over it, or Jimmy Kimmel as well, what happened to him, because you see it triggering planets, and then some event happens that isn't positive. So maybe that's the long answer.
Oh, no, I understand. And I just want to let everybody know, Andre's been doing some great videos on his channel covering Kimmel, Kirk, and all of this. And also, Andre has a really, really good Patreon. I am a patron of two people on Patreon. And it's Kirsten Langston from Third Eye Champagne and you.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice.
And I've been a patron for a long time. And it is great. And this week's video, or the astrology lesson, is really good and really timely. So I can personally recommend Andre's Patreon and his channel. And this man has forgotten more astrology than I know. So he's got so much knowledge, and he's so good.
It's funny. Yeah, no, I'm trying really hard to forget. I know.
No. I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah, so, no, I know. Well, I mean, astrology, that's the thing, is that it can get pretty involved, pretty interesting. The more you dig in, the more you see. Like I didn't start using the black moon until recent years, and now I just, it's almost like it was there, but I wasn't noticing it, because if you use too many symbols, it does become hard to read. But now I notice that it'll show up in like the strangest ways. I'll see it, doing something. I'll go, wow, look at, there it is again. So, but sometimes, as I said, it can be too much. If you start using everything, asteroids, it just too many symbols.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually scrolling down just for a second because I want to say, well, there's a Black Moon Lilith thing in the charts I made, but it's all the way at the end. Okay, so do follow Andre and really consider his Patreon, because it's really good. And like I said, I've been paying money out of my own pocket for years now, and it's worth every penny. So
thank you for that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Chances Andre is behind the chat. I can't see him. I don't have the chat up. Maybe expand I don't know. I don't know what would cause that. Traveling Tarot says I can see them on my phone, but not my TV.
Wow.
That's interesting.
The mysteries of technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have any control. There's nothing going on here that's different. Yeah, I mean, there's a beta thing in StreamYard that I keep, it's off, but because it's useless. It's show comments on stage, and it's the tiniest little pathetic square in the corner.
Wow. Yeah.
People are asking, is there's any way you could scoot to your left or tilt your camera? I don't know. There we go.
Is that better?
You look good to me. So.
All
right.
I know you mentioned. I think you mentioned that today is blue. Well, I have a blue shirt, but the background, unfortunately, is very green. Because StreamYard, what it does is, whatever you've previously used, it'll display whether you like it or not. So it's blue and green. Yeah.
Oh no, that's great. That's great. Okay. All right. I'm trying to juggle a lot in my head. So we're going to look at today's chart. Let me pull this up. There, you should be able to see things better now. Mm-hmm. All right. This is happy 85% partial solar eclipse, everybody. It's the eclipse is actually visible, like think South Pole. I mean, like New Zealand, Australia, Antarctica, and but so we're not going to see it, but you know, we won't see much, if anything. So so this is what's going on today, and over here, this is the eclipse, and this is turning what these outer planets all aspecting each other over here. It's suddenly turning this into a giant, it's called a kite, this symbol. So it goes from this, is it a minor grand trine, or without?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's doing that. It's linking. It's out of sign, but it still counts. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so
then it's a question of what you make of that. I have some ideas about it, but yeah. In other words, that would be like saying, as an example of some good patterns resulting from the eclipse. You know, something that is more positive, which I definitely can think of, especially related to the American chart, which I'm sure you'll show later.
Yeah.
As an example of the eclipse pattern. Yes.
Yes. So I just wanted to show that this very strong blue triangle here, this is what's there, where all of the outer planets are aspecting each other, which is crazy. The good news is that they are in at least easier aspects to each other. Mm-hmm. We're not dealing with the kind of squares and even oppositions, which I find are hit and miss. Mm-hmm. So the good news is the energy isn't as fraught as it was, say, in the early, like 100 years ago. That whole first half of the 1900s. Oh, the young people are calling it. Yeah, you're from the 1900s. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so it isn't as fraught as that, but it's a lot of energy, and I think a lot of people are feeling that. Just the sheer volume, because we live in the sea of energy, and outer planets even changing. One of them changing signs is a big wave of energy, and then this is a lot. So it can feel overwhelming, even if it's not necessarily bad. It's just so and having this eclipse right there turns that triangle into a kite shape, and which can also be very positive. I mean, kind of wind in your sails. but it's a huge amount of energy. So Traveling Tarot is saying the lights in my room just surged. Yeah. And one of my favorite usernames on the internet, Squeebles the kitty. Hello, Squeebles. From the 1900s. Get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now this is that chart that you just saw, but it's turned. It's turned because now that sun and moon are up at the top, up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we were talking about, Saturn and Neptune, Uranus and Pluto over here. So now those planets just tilted. All right. So everybody understands, because those are transits, but we're looking at the chart for the US.
Mm-hmm.
This is ours. I'm a big Sibley fan myself. There are several charts for the US that people use, but the most common was created by a man named Sibley. And I find it explains this pretty well. And here's the thing, though. This eclipse up here at the top, let me grab my little circle. This eclipse up here is sitting right on this axis, the MC, the midheaven, and the IC down here. I take every opportunity I can, because I find it funny, that the mnemonic device I use to remember, it's Imum Celli, Medium Celli, the MC and the IC. I just silly. That's anyway.
The midheaven.
The midheaven is your status in life. Your if you're going to climb a social ladder, that's it. You're going to climb the corporate ladder, that's it. Because back in the day, for women, if it was like, when am I going to get married? You didn't even necessarily look at, the seventh house or what have you. A lot of the time you'd look up at the top of your chart, because getting married was the only way your status was going to go up.
I know they cover that in the Gilded Age. I don't know if anyone has seen that program. It's a recent thing. Christine Baranski's in it, and all the machinations around marriage and what it meant, and it's so different than what it is today. Yeah.
Thank heavens.
It definitely had a lot to do with the midheaven. The status in life. Like, for example, a woman, if she was went through a divorce, she lost all her status, which is absurd, stupid, but that's what happens in a patriarchal world. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this eclipse, which is right on the U.S. midheaven, and this conjunction down here of Saturn and Neptune is down on our IC, and that is your home life.
Right.
Your childhood. Please, I don't want to take over. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say something?
No. Are you saying something to me or to?
Oh no, else? I'm sorry. I thought you were saying something, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
No. I was listening.
Oh, okay. So down here, this is now. I'm going to jump ahead because I want to give you an idea of that. Having Neptune going over our IC can be Neptune dissolves. Saturn forms things and Neptune dissolves. So having them conjunct is a trip. What that can mean for the US, actually, if I go down here, I'm going to jump ahead. Because on the US chart, if you go all the way back to the Civil War, we're going through, yes, our first Uranus return, all of this. But down here, Neptune was going over our IC then, our home. This is your fourth house is your fourth house is your house of your home life. It's ruled by Cancer, big mom, that kind of thing. Very nurturing. People, regular viewers, you know, I have a Cancer moon, so if you get anywhere near me, I'm going to start feeding you. Just, it's my nature. And having Saturn go over that IC can dissolve the bonds between us. If you think of the U.S. as our home, and that can make things a lot more fuzzy. So that was one of the things going on during the Civil War, when the Civil War started. But back up here, Neptune is kind of there now. The good news is by the time we get to our next Uranus return in a couple of years, it'll actually have moved. Neptune will have moved on a bit. So people who are I know people have been really, really afraid of, you know, we're going into a civil war. It's not like it was. What do you think? What do you think, Andre? Any thoughts on this?
Well, the similarities would be the Saturn Neptune, because Saturn, well, it's not totally true. Saturn during the Civil War was in Libra instead of Aries, but it's just the opposite side. So in a sense, it's somewhat similar. Planets do this on one side or the other, because it would still hit the midheaven in that case instead of being below. But Neptune was where it is today. In fact, the Civil War started precisely as Neptune was entering Aries. And that goes to your point about it being in a place where it's dissolving something, or at least trying to dissolve something, because it really didn't. It signified the start of the conflict. And the other thing, of course, is from there, during the conflict, it's squaring the American Venus and Jupiter, those two planets. And it lasted 4 years, you know, at the time, and then it ends in 1865, by which point the Neptune is moved. Actually, the Neptune moved about as many degrees in between 1861 and 65 as it does between now and 2028, roughly, right? So I think it's not really all that big a reach to say we are in a civil war. It's just a different type of civil war. But it's pretty clear that the country is incredibly divided, and there seems to be no way to bridge the dialogue. So that's happening. And then the Uranus return, though, the only thing that's different is that Uranus is about half a Neptune cycle, but not quite. So back in the Civil War, it was happening a little bit differently. Now it's going to return, like it returned then, kind of concurrent with the Civil War itself. Now it returns in 2028, but minus the Neptune. It's just a little bit different. So very similar patterns, which I've been saying actually for years. I was saying this years ago, but I wasn't in a way connecting with how, you know, you say things and you don't realize how challenging it's going to be. So we're in it. I mean, the division is here, the argument is here. But now, as far as how you were showing the eclipses, to me, the eclipses, especially the one we're in now, right? So right now, you can pretty much say September 2025. I mean, it's pretty obvious, especially following the Charlie Kirk incident. Country's really on edge, and the president is being even more divisive than usual. That you would say, well, look, eclipses, you know, major eclipse, Saturn, Neptune on the other side, cutting across the MC and the IC. It's true. It's reflective of that. Both eclipses, really, because both eclipses cut across Virgo Pisces, which is the 410 part of the chart, which is the government and the homeland, or the people. I mean, it's a very important axis in the chart. So there are the eclipses. But it's interesting. There's one thing that is showing up. When you were showing that kite, the trines, and so on. So notice that the eclipses, both of them in a sense, but probably even more so this one, they trine and sextile the American Mercury. And notice that what is the topic right now? Big topic is free speech. Well, Mercury is speech, it's communication. And it's curious that, to me, the president is totally on the wrong side of this. The way he's talking about it makes no sense legally, morally. The whole thing is made up, as it is with many of the things he says and does. But all of a sudden, the people that opposed him in the first place, which is already close to 60% of the country, of course, disapprove. But notice that people like Tucker Carlson, Ted Cruz, all of a sudden he's getting feedback, negative feedback, even from his own people. Wall Street Journal, say, no, you can't do this. You can't just say, free speech is whatever you like. Free speech is free speech. So in that sense, I think the eclipses are helpful, in pointing out that something is wrong. But overall, they're in that axis, so they do reflect a tough time, I think, because we're in it. I mean, I think September has been one of the more difficult months, So,
oh yeah. We're definitely in it. Whew.
Yeah, and it's curious too that because the other thing you notice with eclipses that people will look straight in and say, well, look, it's 28 Virgo, Saturn, and Saturn is in Pisces really late. The eclipse is really late in Virgo. And you look in and you say, well, it's September 21st. The eclipse has an effect before and after the region. It's a kind of period. And notice that that's where Charlie Kirk has his Venus. He's no longer here. But this eclipse affects him. He's in a zone that is very dangerous on account of the eclipse. But why is it very dangerous? Because I think he was taking a lot of chances, the way he did things. My thought around this was, okay, so here you are, you're saying some really incendiary things. Now, just think about it logically. He's talking with millions, or talking to or with millions of people. And you know that, okay, they're all presumably MAGA people. MAGA people, who has the guns in this country? Who is liable to shoot at you? It's almost always a gun-toting MAGA person. But you got to be sensible and think, all these millions of people, 10% of them are gay. And you know what? There may be something going on. Someone's going to pick up a gun and shoot at you because you're saying things that that person may object to. It's just math. It's math. So you need to show up with a Kevlar suit because it could happen. So in a sense, he made a big mistake, and he walked into it, so to speak. And you see that in the chart. By the way, the most violent planet would be Mars and Pluto. But Mars definitely is the planet that is always circulating, doing something combative, including the idea of a bullet. And that Mars was right there on his planets as this thing happened. He's Sun and Jupiter conjunct in Libra, was transiting right through there. But in a sense, it's only acting as the trigger to the bigger picture, where the Saturn, because Saturn is the stop sign, and it can do that to you. It can end your life, literally. But of course, you always need the context. Lots and lots and lots of people will have this eclipse. They're not going to report someone shooting at them because they're not giving them a reason to. It's just that's the sort of proactive side of astrology. It's the interaction of your will with the planets. If you're under hard aspects and you tell me, I'm thinking of visiting a war zone, I'll probably say, well, that's kind of a dangerous idea because your planets might show up that way. But if you don't do that, then in most cases, they'll show up psychologically. You'll feel the conflict internally. You're not going to be seeing bullets and disaster that way. So this is the thing with the astrology. You see all these intersecting circles, going on, to the U.S. that part I'm very thankful for, that people on both sides are pointing to this thing around the First Amendment, being really important, because that's what authoritarians are always trying to stop because they don't like it. Now, separately, by the way, I keep saying this is not fruitful. It's not a fruitful scene for authoritarians, because whenever they compare, look at the Nazis were doing this. The Nazis didn't have the entire population walking around with cell phones, taking pictures and making videos of everything. That makes things really complicated. You probably saw that well, you're in Chicago, right? So in Chicago, the thing I saw were all these people with their cell phones, filming. This is not cool. They don't like it at all. And indeed, it's why the reason they wear the masks in large measures because they get doxxed, because the population is extremely angry and they'll try to get back at you. So it's a big reach to control hundreds of millions of people that are this connected through media. So the irony here is that Trump has spent his entire life manipulating the media, and now the media is turning on him, in my opinion. You just got to give it time. The media ecosphere, not necessarily Fox News, I know that's a separate story, but the idea that media becomes a huge problem because people know too much, and they keep showing it. So, yeah.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. And also, I think one thing that people aren't talking about as much with the whole free speech issue is the Colbert and Kimmel and all these people being pushed off of broadcast television isn't the end of the world for them, because broadcast television is shrinking.
Exactly.
And if you I was explaining yesterday, so forgive me those who were here yesterday, but there's actually a website you can go and it shows even the broadcast frequencies in the US. And this color is for TV broadcasting, and this is for phone stuff, and this is for emergency, and this, and it's got this really interesting thing. Well, the phone frequencies are starting to are encroaching on the like TV broadcast frequencies, and they want more. And then you get into the new kinds of tech, and you get all of this kind of thing. So I don't like Bill Maher, but Bill Maher said something boneheaded after 9/11. Surprise. He got kicked off of a major
ABC.
What is it? The legacy ABC, was it?
Yeah.
But he ended up on HBO. He's fine. As a matter of fact, he was able to just say more of what he wanted to. And so as much as Trump is crowing, look what I did, you got some of these people off of a dying medium, pushing them onto growing mediums.
It's whack-a-mole. The whole thing is whack-a-mole. And the way the U.S. is structured, it is so hard to make someone go away. They go somewhere else, and they could be even more problematic for you. It's total whack-a-mole. He had Jimmy Kimmel as an appendage to his program, 20 million subscribers on YouTube. So he just starts a YouTube channel and he starts talking. This is bad, bad, bad. I mean, what are you going to do now? You're going to take Google down too? I mean, at what point? Where does it stop? And by the way, a lot of the reason he is even able to do it is because he's manipulating the licenses. He's kind of saying to ABC, well, if you don't do this, I'm not going to allow you to merge. And why are they merging? Because they want to compete with Google. That's the whole point. They're shrinking. They want to get bigger so they can be a counterforce. But people aren't watching as much TV as they used to. They're more connected, as you say, to the phone, to the internet. So it's major whack-a-mole. And then you've got the legality of it, because now Kimmel is suing too. It can get really complicated. Well, look what happened with the New York Times. The judge threw it out. Why? Because it's completely spurious. It's BS, right? And now on top of it, I heard Jennifer Rubin. She's an ex-Republican, now more centrist, whatever. And she said, well, I noticed that the New York Times is becoming more aggressive. That's what happens, right? You push into things, they counter you. Rupert Murdoch isn't having any of it at the Wall Street Journal. All their, they do op-eds saying this, you can't do this, so you're chipping away. People complain and they say, why is he still here? Honestly, either he or the GOP, you're not making them go away till 2028. I don't see a way out of that. That's the way the system is. If you want bigger revolution than that, it's probably dangerous, for something bigger to happen. But, take everything you can get that shows you that things aren't as easy as they seem. The way he's behaving, like he's taking over the world and so forth.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
not true.
I'm so sorry. I was trying. This thing said it's about to die, and I was trying to switch over.
Oh, okay, no
And
problem.
okay, now I can. Can I hear here?
Hmm.
There we go. Now I can hear you. I'm so sorry. But you were saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just, in a way, I went off on a tangent just to
No, no, no.
bring in the whole idea that even within, when you're in Civil War aspects, it's going to be difficult. And there are even strong echoes to the Second World War from the Uranus return. Every time Uranus returns, the world goes into a topsy-turvy place, but both conflicts eventually resolved.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, like when you look historically, you'll say, oh yeah, that was a difficult period. If you were living in that period, you would be pretty anxious. Of course, there's always uncertainty. Who knows where this is going to go? We're in it again now. I see lots and lots of signals, though, that it's not working out so well for the fascists, the way they
Agreed.
wanted to. Putin included, by the way, because Putin has all that. He's got all those Libra planets, and Saturn is going to oppose them. Not good. Same with Netanyahu, another another person that is pushing and driving. Saturn is moving in on him, next year. And but
I
in
do
the
so
meantime,
hope
we're
he
here.
ends up in the Hague.
Potentially, or sometimes I think the Hague, or as long as the person disappears, or anything, quite frankly.
As long as he's out of power, that'll get us 90% of the way there.
Yeah, but it is very divided. Throughout the world right now, it's not just here. There's lots of division in Europe, Israel, everywhere. It's problematic. So it describes the period that we're in.
Sorry, I wanted to grab this. The this book, this is a very old copy. Obviously,
Oh yeah,
it's
Grant Loy.
beaten up.
Yeah.
I love this book. Gave me great perspective. I thought it was really fascinating, not just because it's got good information, but because he wrote the first draft in 1941. They were in the middle of World War II. And the details when he's talking about like Hitler's chart and the things Hitler's going through and the things Hitler has said, he's right in the middle of it. Yeah. And there are, in the same way that we're in the middle of our own struggle here. It's so anyway, I just wanted to say that if for anybody out there who's into astrology, parts of this are right near the beginning. It's about the charts of first edition 1940. My mistake. Strong Men of Destiny: Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Napoleon, and Kaiser Wilhelm. We don't even talk about Kaiser Wilhelm anymore, but at the time, that was still very much fresh in people's memories. So
no, that's and it would be so different to be there and writing the book and and knowing this guy's still around doing what he's doing. Then today we're looking at it from a distance. But the astrology, Hitler's chart is fascinating. Astrology, you can learn so much from it, including that. Like when he got stopped, Saturn, he had Moon in Capricorn, and the Saturn opposed it, like as he was having to put a bullet in his head. I can't think of anything more, And the other one, Mussolini, I came across a video on his life and death. And remember I was telling you about the Black Moon. So he was executed by the resistance with the Black Moon has a 9-year orbit. Goes around and precisely. So it was.
I just had a question in the chat. That's why I'm holding it up. But please continue.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the Black Moon position, it's a 9-year cycle. It's pretty long. So this is with astrology. You always say, well, look, the meaningful coincidence. Like, what is that planet doing there now? It's kind of reflective. The Black Moon was exactly where his Black Moon is at birth, like in one of its 9-year cycles. He's like at a wall and someone's pointing a gun at him and his life ends. Now, why does it end? Because of what he did,
Yeah.
Not every person that gets a Black Moon return
Yeah.
It's going to be executed. It'll be something, some psychological thing. So this is always the thing. What's the context? What has a person been doing? Any cycle you experience has a lot to do with what's been going on in your life leading up to that point. No,
Yeah.
like that.
If
Oh,
you,
and the other one, by the way, Pluto was the other one because he was a Leo. So Pluto was conjunct the Sun. So
yeah,
both.
that'll do it.
That'll do it.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
There's one thing I noticed when I was looking at, if I go down to slide 8. Slide 8? Yeah, slide 8. One thing I noticed, speaking of that, is I noticed that in 2027, when we have our third Uranus return, the US does, that Black Moon Lilith is going to be basically conjunct Pluto. And I thought, oh, okay. It'll be in the third house. So I'm expecting some. So.
Yeah, well, for sure. We're in a contentious era. So
Yeah.
it's a definite possibility. The Uranus return, though, I think I see it optimistically in the sense that, first of all, if a big planet is doing something, it signifies change. It signifies a turn. It's better to be out of power. That was one of the first things I thought of when Trump was reelected. Immediately I realized, oh, this may actually be better because you go into the next election. If you're the party in power, you're at risk of being removed. And to that, you can add that Uranus is the most anti-fascist planet. Uranus is in the psyche is the most independent, self-willed, go my own way energy. Although this is where you get into arguments. There are astrologers that for example, the Hellenistic astrologers, they don't like connecting the outer planets to any kind of rulership. But I've noticed that Neptune does associate to Pisces, Pluto to Scorpio, and Uranus. At first, I resisted that, but then I noticed repeatedly, even in my own chart, that it kept pointing to that house. So Aquarius, as the sign of the people, that's why democracy is the power of the individual within the group. So that planet abhors, Plutonian runaway fascism, centralizing power, monarchic types of things. So I think that that's good, that the return is there where you can speak to the people and say, look what these people are doing. They're trying to, free speech is whatever they say it is, and many other things, that they're doing that are not Uranian, they're fascist, right? So I see that as a more positive thing. But by the way, I'm not saying necessarily though that, because it never does. Whatever the outcome, it'll probably still be tense, even then, because you're not going to make away. You're not going to make this group of people go away all that fast. It seldom works that way. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is. Pluto was going through Aquarius at the signing of just before the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Now, the actual Revolutionary War started when Pluto was still back in Capricorn, and to people who aren't familiar, they're like, I don't know what that means. You just lived through Pluto and Capricorn.
That's true, but I mean, think about it, right? Okay, so how did the U.S. was formed to get rid of the king? The U.S. didn't want the king. So, and by the way, there's also the fact that Pluto, there's the correction to a chart, the fact that the sky is moving backwards slowly. So when something is 250 years old, it kind of extends the transit. For a person, it would be 1 degree. 72 years old, you get 1 degree. For a country 250 years old, it's 3+ degrees. So Pluto is, even in early Aquarius, it's at its return point because it's where in the sky it was in 1776. But it was a reaction to the king. And now we've got another king wannabe. This is not going to work. Because the whole point is the country is back where it was, saying, we don't want a king. Now the king is inside. Well, the king wannabe is inside. It's the same logic, right? It's not like we're fighting against an external agent. Person is inside the building. And then plus also too, doesn't it make sense that if you've got something that clearly doesn't work because you've got incorrect thinking and a whole lot of people that are really incompetent and don't know what they're doing, only the best people, right? As he says. So then people have to see, this doesn't work. And for example, lots of Republican voters, they need to see that the prices aren't going down. The prices are going up. And maybe they can't pay for what they need to pay for, and they're going to be upset. They'll see, no, he basically conned us. He said something and then he didn't do it. Right? And then you can vote against it.
How this is kind of my litmus test that I've been asking everybody I know and run across. What is the condition of the lettuce in your grocery store? Because like where I am, I'm in Chicago, but the fresh vegetables are terrible. My I take care of my parents, or help take care of my parents. And my mom went to the grocery store the other night, and I said, "Can you pick up some lettuce?" She came home. She said, "I couldn't. It was just gross. All of it. All of the lettuce was gross." Are you running into any problems like that where you live? Because you're on the West Coast.
Well, the first thing with that I'm going to be insulated, and I can't relate as much because we grow lettuce, we grow peppers, tomatoes, collards. I mean, the vegetables are covered, and also in this area there are amazing markets that you go to on the weekend. All the farmers come from the east part of the state, and they bring incredible vegetables. So
good.
We're not going to be as affected by that. But I can totally hear your point. This would be where you have to let people become conscious slowly but surely that something has changed. And then if you add, oh, look at these vegetables, they're low quality and they cost more.
Yeah.
The situation is, it's just not good.
Yeah.
So
I have 2 raised beds.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I have some dwarf varieties. Oh, hey, I just see. They grow.
Nice.
They grow these little itty bitty peppers.
Nice. Yeah.
They don't get bigger than that. That's that's fully grown, and then these little tiny eggplants.
Yeah.
Little cherry tomatoes. So I have a few things there, and potatoes. But yeah, I need to plant some lettuce. But no, it's right after dumpster fire got into power, it became very, very clear this is not our lesson to learn. We voted for Democrats.
Of course, yeah.
We know. But this isn't our lesson to learn. They need to understand that, let's see, hang on, over and over and over, Republicans get in power and they destroy the economy. And then Democrats get in power and they fix it. And then a Republican gets in power and he destroys the economy. And then a Democrat gets in and he fixes it. It's like, hello. Oh, geez, I didn't mean to whistle that loudly. So, yeah, if Kamala Harris had become president, which I wish she had, but the silver lining in this very, very dark cloud is that they can't blame her. They can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that's democracy. Democracy is very challenging. That's why Churchill said it's the worst system except for all the other systems, right? He knew that he said that. And yet it's interesting, when you say this, that Tucker Carlson, who on the one hand is objecting to the free speech attack, but he's out there saying, on the other side of his mouth, total nonsense. He's saying that Churchill was putting people he didn't like of the opposite party in jail, which is total falsehood. Didn't happen at all. But he's trying to support Trump's idea of maybe having to put Gavin Newsom in jail because he's opposing him, right? But the point is, the true historical account is that Churchill during the war still had to deal with parliament and objections and get his expenditures passed. It was not easy at all. It wasn't like he had this carte blanche, just, shoot at the Nazis and do whatever you like. No, it was complicated for him during the whole thing. And he lost his seat a little bit later. Democracy that way is a constant battle because both sides are competing, and that's just how it is. And it should be that way. If you win an election, if you're in a democratic country and you win 80-20, it's not a democracy. You know that it's Russia or whatever. But usually, at most, you'll get 60 if you're lucky. 50s, like that's a landslide, right? And sometimes it's very, very narrow, which makes it incredibly frustrating because when you have a guy like this who won with less than 50% of the total vote, because that's a fact, then he is imposing his ways on the other half. So, it's kind of unfair that he can say, well, I got this big mandate and
No.
I should be able to do whatever I want. No, actually, that's not true. It's completely untrue. Yeah.
And that kind of takes me back to what I was talking about with that book, because like a lot of people today don't understand FDR had huge battles to make the changes he did. Massive. It wasn't a walk in the, okay, I'm going to create Social Security. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to get the WPA going. I'm going to do this. Oh, okay. Everyone went, okay, no, no. It's not easy.
No, it's incredibly hard. And that's the thing. When you look at history, you just say, oh, that's that decade. Well, a decade is a decade in your mind. But if you're living through it, it's a decade. And it's, that's what we've been in 10 years. In the future, they'll go, yeah, those people, they had to deal with that guy, that orange crazy person. It's just like a story. When you're there, it's painful. It's painful. It's difficult. It's everything that we're experiencing. Yeah, it's totally true.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But, it's interesting you mentioned FDR. FDR, in his day, back to the thing about the unbelievable level of media now because of people having cell phones and cameras and all this. In his day, for his third term, because they were in a war and they wanted to re-elect him, but the Democratic Party, there were rumors that his health wasn't up to par. Now this is going on again with Biden, with Trump, and that. But now, you can't escape it. Then what they did is they put him in a car, drove around New York so that people could see that he was still there, and that was enough. They publicly came over, oh yeah, he's good, and they voted for him. That would never work today. You need way more because of the media. But I think overall, it's actually better for the world, as maybe in some ways dangerous the internet can be and so forth. It's true. We're grappling with that as well, how to manage this new thing. But even so, I think it's better that people know, because if they know, you can't fool them as easily. And this went on in the Second World War in major ways. A lot of, all those Polish people that were murdered by the Russians, no one knew about it until much later, because they were doing it. And now you do something in the news, I notice sometimes I'll see the news here, and I check European publications, and instantly the same story, sometimes with even more insight, is being published. So it's just everywhere. This makes it hard. And I think will eventually even make it hard for countries like China that have all that, suppression to make sure people don't know what's going on. It's a big problem. It's also why, think about the Second World War. The Russians, they killed many of their own people to win that war. They would just say, you're fighting. In fact, they would put you in the front, and if you tried to go the other way, they would shoot you. Now, in this war, many of them left. They just thought, I'm not going to fight for you. And they went somewhere else, which ultimately hurts your country because you lose a lot of your talent, which is another problem that this man in our country is causing, which is horrific. We're losing a lot of the people that would help us. Scientists, they go elsewhere. That's the sad part. And we'll have to recover, from it later, as it is. Yeah.
Well, I we're because there are cycles upon cycles and upon cycles, depending on whether you're looking at it close up or at 40,000 feet. Because right now, in my way of thinking, I have nothing to prove this, But to my way of thinking, this Pluto in Aquarius, to me, seems like a symbolic beginning of the age of Aquarius, because we don't have an exact date when we're going to switch over to the age of Aquarius. But it's all this Aquarian energy. And I think that people are going to look in the far future. People will look back at this time, and I don't think they're going to see Donald Trump. I think they're going to see computers and AI.
That's true. That's true. And although I have a slightly different take, or maybe it isn't so slight, but Aquarius as the connector to Uranus. So my sense is that the age of Aquarius began when Uranus was discovered. It's just that people think, the age of Aquarius, this will be when we'll be in utopia. There is no utopia. Put that out of your mind. But, if people say, oh, the past used to be better. Really? Do you want to go back to, to any period in the past? You have to be nuts to think that way. In that sense, you'd probably say, no, I think I'll just stay here, because almost nothing worked better before, and certainly not before the American experiment. I mean, it was all barbarian or monarchic rule. Then Uranus is discovered, and actually Neptune got in on the action, because Neptune is another very democratic planet. And I noticed that the French Revolution happened, but they didn't really become democratic till 1870. So it's later, after Neptune is discovered. So those two planets change the dialogue completely. And now you have many, many millions living in democratic governments, which was never the case before. People will say, oh yeah, ancient Greece. I know, but that was a small, not a big experiment. And you can't tell me the Native Americans or the Eskimos, these are small. Yes, you can do democracy in small groups. Try doing democracy with 350 million people. Very complicated. But it is the best system because it lets people do what they like. I mean, plain and simple. Anyone that is asking for top-down patriarchal rule is just really ignorant. When they find out what that means, they will regret thinking that way. So it's really important to focus on that. And then the Pluto in Aquarius, I think it supercharges it because it's in the sign that relates to the people. And yes, I agree with you. AI, greater computing power. Like one of my, this probably won't happen, but one of my fantasies is, imagine if AI became deployed to force people to be honest. Like it just check and said, no, that's not, like, imagine if you were doing a political thing and instantly the AI would say, no, that's just BS. Rephrase what you just said. You made it up. Like immediately, like, if you got all that computing power, show what this person actually said. Let's deal with it now. I mean, instead, what did you notice about Trump in the 2024 run-up? He didn't want to be fact-checked. He would only do so that he could actually BS people, which is what he does. He's an expert at disinformation, which, by the way, he has said. He told a reporter once, I think I forget, but the guy's name at the moment, but he told me in one of the books, he said, oh, disinformation is a beautiful thing. That's what he said. So, that's what he does.
Not surprised. Oh, I did want to ask you something. Do you have just a minute more?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Take up too much of your time. I mean, it's up to you. I'll stay on as long as you're willing to talk, because this is great. No,
I can do a few more minutes, no problem.
Okay. I heard something that I hadn't heard before, and there's maybe nothing to it, but I thought I'd just run it past you. There was an astrologer I was listening to who was saying that he thinks of eclipses as like an absolute ending and absolute beginning. And he said that like the fact that the Charlie Kirk death rally is this afternoon in a stadium. He said, look at what they're saying just as the eclipse goes exact, and write what they're talking about right in there, that will give you a sense of what's coming up. I hadn't heard anything like that. I tend to think of eclipses as being like those old-fashioned flashes on cameras, where it's poof, and then it's like that part of the sky. It's you get the weird, it's just a huge amount of energy. But I hadn't heard anything like that. Have you heard anything like that? Have you?
There's so many theories about so many things in astrology, and I think that often people overplay eclipses. They give them way more power than they really have. The eclipses work in concert with all the other things that are around at the time. So eclipses now are supercharged if they trigger things like these ones did. They triggered the American chart, they triggered different people. So that's true. But to then say an eclipse comes along and forevermore, I mean, I don't know. In a certain way, that could be true. But here's the thing, right? How do you know? So they're doing this thing now, like you said, the death talk. They're going to say all kinds of things. So are you saying that all those things then come to pass forever? Or could it be the other way around, that the public becomes aware of what they said and it's actually the point from which it starts to decline and go the other way? Because, you know, the thing about all of this, back again to the media, I saw all these videos in the wake of the tragedy with all these people primarily on the left saying, hey, we have the receipts. Don't tell us about the saintliness of this guy, because here's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it's him on camera saying these things
Mm-hmm.
over and over. Like, essentially, as far as he's concerned, women are stupid, especially black women. He said
Mm-hmm.
this. Okay, well, what about Michelle Obama and Ketanji Jackson? It's like, these are people that are, you know, a lot smarter than he is, but he says these things, right? And he repeat all kinds of garbage, like utter garbage. This is their hero. Okay, but we're seeing it. We're seeing it. So does it mean that it continues, or does it mean that it changes? You know, and kind of like how you said earlier, we're going to look back and go, Trump was when the change happened. Like, which way was it? You know, and my feeling is that it's the opposite of what they're reaching for. And it's the same with this. Yeah, go ahead. Which is why, by the way, free speech is great. Let them talk. And don't be disturbed by anything anyone says. That's what they've picked on Democrats for years. You know, the whole thing about safe spaces. No, let people talk, because then you know what they're saying. you have to be strong enough to say, I'm not going to let this affect me. You know, sticks and stones and all that stuff. Let people talk. That way, you know, it's on the record, and then we know what it is. Even if it's really unsavory, better, much better. The problem is when you don't know. I often say this to people too. When this situation is really bad, realize that they'll say, look what he's doing. The point is that you know that he's doing it. Mm-hmm. This is critical. If you didn't know, then it's a big problem. That's what was going on in previous, epochs or eras where lots of things were going on and no one knew. The next thing you know, you were in this new reality that was very bad and you had to live with it, right? So, yeah. I don't know if that's too strident a way to put it, but
no, not at all. Because I just hadn't heard anything like that. I was like, "Seems a little odd." Okay, I'm always, you're willing to listen to what people have to say, especially if it's something they've had personal experience with. But it doesn't mean that's the rule, you know.
Right. You know, and something else too. That, I mean, if you are into astrology, the first thing you need to do. This is such a basic thing. You need to find where your planets are and memorize them. You need to know, like, or have a list, or like, it's got to be very clear to you where they are. And then you have to take the next step and find out if are eclipses or anything really, but at least eclipses. Let's say you're an eclipse fan. Then when are those eclipses affecting you? Because if you want to know how an eclipse works, you need it to be near one of your planets, and you get that feeling like as it's building up and then it's happening, you'll notice something that is different, and then it can become part of your mental archive. Oh yeah, that eclipse was doing that to that planet and I felt in a certain way. That's a lot more accurate than hearing all kinds of people, including what I'm saying. I'm saying this big deal. You need to experience it in yourself. It's the same with Mars. If I say, okay, Mars is a violent planet, notice what happens when Mars squares one of your planets, and at minimum, the irritation, and you see something and you can feel the surge. Of course, you're always at a choice. Are you going to express it, yelling and screaming and throwing things, or are you just going to notice the energy within? But it's unmistakable. That's why astrologers do astrology all these thousands of years, because we've observed it so many times, and
Right.
every single time, the coincidence. There's Mars, boom, happens again. Then it moves, things get cooler.
Yeah. I mean, I know from experience that because I was born on November 6th, when in early February and early August, something will happen that will ding my sense of self. There will be something that makes me feel smaller, something that makes me feel not as powerful. because every single year that's when the sun is square and the sky is squaring the sun in my chart. I've had like one decent Valentine's Day in my life. I have the worst luck with Valentine's Day. It's just awful. And it's just like, yep. And the people are like, oh, I love summer. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And then the next thing would be you track these things, and this is the way I do it. I try to notice what's the most positive thing that happens on a square and what's the most negative. And if you're tracking it, you notice that the most positive of a square is that it's not balanced, but you're doing something to correct something, some kind of movement. Like, if, for instance, if you find yourself taking a room apart and putting it back together, the tension of it and you're moving toward a new outcome, that would still be positive. In fact, you could even argue you only do that on the square, because when it's trying, you say, I'm just going to go watch TV. Life is good. I'm not going to do anything. You need the square to mobilize you. The problem with the square is that, as you put it, sun is squaring. It could be maybe a male figure, giving you a hard time, or something solar, or it could just be what the sun rules, or just general discomfort, or, as you said, I feel like my self-esteem is being challenged. But then, of course, you have to ask, okay, what am I going to do about this? I feel this way, because that is actually the secret meaning of it. It's trying to help you evolve and get better at doing what you're doing. They're both necessary, the squares and but I admit, if I say all this and then I don't look forward to Saturn squaring me. I don't. That's true. Because I think I've learned enough. Just like, leave me alone now.
And I know when things happen in the first half of February, the first half of August. I know it ultimately, maybe long term, it's actually helping my self-esteem to know this too shall pass. This is happening almost like clockwork. And it's like, and then it'll go. But then I get to early March, coming up like near my mom's birthday, and I feel really good because the sun is trining my sun. And I'm like, oh, this is great.
Exactly. And the same thing will happen with big planets, like when Saturn was in Aquarius, directly squaring the middle of Scorpio, which was 2022. Then you can even, this again, your planets, but you got to know where they are too. I mean, I know it's a bit of a thing. It's not a huge learning though to know, okay, well, Saturn is here. Even if you just took Saturn, you said, there's Saturn, I'm in the middle of Scorpio. Then you find out when it gets close and it squares, and you track, for instance, the moon will go through there, boom, and trigger it. They can be hours where it's really, really clear, but sometimes it's just psychological, like something's going on in you where you realize, oh yeah, I can totally understand that, but nothing is going on other than just my own psyche is trying to process this. And then there'll be other times where the event, like whatever, something happens in the world, that reflects it. But the fact that this thing of constant coincidences, where planets, you find them where you expect to find them, reflecting something that is going on, right?
Yeah. I have a huge T-square in my chart, and I've shown it to people here about how I think of my chart as being like a galley ship, where you've got the deck, which is across my ascendant descendant, and then the mast is the T-square where I've got Mars at the top, but underneath I've got Sun trine Moon, so I think of that as my hammock. Because, and this sense of sun moon trine each other helps me, because as every planet's hitting one of those parts of the T-square, it's setting that off and setting that off and setting that off and on and on. And when somebody has a good aspect to like the Mars in my chart, I find myself being like, I like you. Because
if someone trines your Mars, right.
Yeah, it's like there's something good there toward the Mars in my chart. I'm just like, okay, I want to be by this person. Okay, I want to be by this person. So
that's true. That's totally true. Totally true. Yeah. And when you're a T-square, that would be like the moon when it's in early mutable. So Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo. So then it's like a persistent teaching. It's going through, you gauge what's it doing in those degrees, because it's triggering the T-square. And there will be times when it triggers it that are not fun. That
No.
and then you have to ask, well, what did I do? What could I have done better? Because I noticed,
Oh,
I spoke of food because of Moon in Cancer. So the Moon itself is the most food-related planet, and so what I notice with me is that a lot of my downtrends are food-related. I'll do something with food that was not the right choice, and then it makes the period of the square, whatever it is, more difficult. And so that's one example, but there could be others. The point is that you trigger that T square, yes, you're going to feel it. And then what's the top end and what's the bottom end of that, right? I mean, you could literally, with a chart like yours, you could do I don't know how many years or how many months, but you track it and you can write a book on here's what I did with my T square. And
yeah.
it's really, really valid and really useful astrology because lots of people out there have these patterns, and they're trying to understand what to do.
Oh, yeah. Well, because of the mast on the ship is up. It's in my 10th house.
Mars.
Mars is in my 10th house.
Mm-hmm.
Saturn just year and a half ago or something. Anyway, it just went over that point, that Saturn, and boom, got a herniated disc in my back. And it's like my turn to take action to climb the, and work and do all the thing. And Saturn's like, no.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's that's the downside of some of these planets. Saturn for sure. The hardest thing with Saturn is you get sick or you get because it's the contraction force. So it'll reduce your life in some way, but it'll happen, but it can also happen because somehow you were stressing your disc as well. I mean, these things are all related. It couldn't just be that.
No, there was a weakness there already. I just found it interesting that took my trying to work and what have you. That did not go well at all, because that also meant Saturn was squaring Saturn in my chart. I generally speaking, I like Saturn because it's on my ascendant, and I have a weakness for Capricorns. I think Capricorns are the bee's knees. I think you're a Capricorn, aren't you?
No, it's because my Jupiter trines your Mars. That's really the reason.
Oh, okay. That would do it then. But
yeah, I mean, if you're Saturn ruled, it does increase the chances. Yeah, that you like the Saturn energy more because that's so close to you too. Your Saturn is just above the line, which means the ascendant crossed it like 5 minutes before you were born. So Saturn, big imprint. Not the only thing where astrology gets complicated is that so much is going on at the same time. But for you, the end of 22. So 23 in 2023 near the end of the year, but already building up though, because it moved up into 7 degrees Pisces. So it was squaring all these things. And then at the end of the year, it made a station, squaring everything. That's, primordial astrological learning, but it's not going to be easy. In my chart, those degrees are triggered too. And we had a really bad plumbing incident that cost a ton of money. And it could have been avoided. Part of it could have been avoided, but that's Pluto, by the way. Pluto and plumbing. If Pluto is involved.
Okay. I would have thought it would be Neptune, but sure, that makes sense.
Pluto is like
hidden underground, the water.
The sewage. Pluto is that's another reason it's connected to Scorpio. Is whenever you see, like if someone is in the sewage business or they're in the city sewage, waste matter is scorpionic, Plutonian. This is why, I'm going on a few tangents here, but this, by the way, this is a great example of tropical astrology signs are better than Vedic signs. Sorry for the Vedic people. It's just true. They took their astrology from Babylon, and Babylon didn't use Vedic signs. They just decided to use the constellation. So, because you would be a Libra in their right. But Bill Gates is a Scorpio tropical sign. Otherwise, he'd be a Libra. And go to Netflix and you'll see this video about him where he created this unbelievable, because he's got a lot of technology in his chart too. So he created this room-sized toilet thing that converts waste matter into drinking water for the third world. No, when I saw this, I thought that is such a scorpionic. Where
Yes.
you're going straight to your topic, and you have this genius to do
Mhm.
something
I
really
would do
helpful,
it.
really unusual. To
Uh,
it reflects the sign that you're in. And so anyway, that was an aside to the Pluto, though, having these connections to that sign. They're so obvious. So then later you can see in charts that it actually points to the house as well when something is happening. I do this all the time when I look at charts, and I can tell that it is related to that. Yeah. So
Oh
anyway.
yeah, and the thing is that we were talking specifically about individual things because we don't want to dissuade people from being like, it's so much or I don't know what. But once you've learned the small pieces, you can start putting them together. Because right now, I mean, I was showing Andre the eclipse and the transits, the outer planet transits, are hitting my chart. Oh my gosh, the whole thing is just ringing my chart like a gong. The whole thing is very complicated. I just wanted to show them just the number of up here. There I am. This is what's going on in my chart right now. This is what the aspects are doing to my chart. So when you're faced with stuff like this, you can go, okay, all right. And you start, it's like if anybody read Bird by Bird, you just one bird at a time. just do it bird by bird, just one at a time.
Yeah,
Because
and it's not all bad too. You've got the Pluto and the Uranus. Well, Uranus, I guess, is a little more because the Uranus is doing conjunctions and oppositions because you've got planets in Gemini. Where it's going to go? Not just yet, but it's already there, squaring Mars. So, but Pluto's actually pretty good. It does pretty good angles from Aquarius.
Hallelujah.
In both directions. So it helps, which means finding ways to change yourself toward a better place on all kinds of levels. That's the Pluto. When it's square, it's more demanding. It'll change you also, but it can create situations that are difficult. And like what Jimmy Kimmel has Mercury at 2 degrees Scorpio, so that Pluto is directly squaring it. That's part of the deal with this.
That would do it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, I mean, your chart for sure. You're in years of change and transformation.
A lot.
Things moving forward, and
and going back through. I mean, I'm a Scorpio, so maybe I'm biased because Pluto rules Scorpio. But one of the things I've learned is to go back through my own chart and just say, okay, Pluto in my chart, and this is for everybody, Pluto in my chart started down here. Right there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And my sun is up here. My sense of self is there. And then I've got this big old stellium right here on my descendant. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a big deal. So if you break down where, because Saturn, Pluto kept moving. So you get these transits. And as Pluto hit my sun, and then it hit this mess and also set off the whole T-square, I had immense opportunities that came, but I also very plutonic. It in some ways it gave me these opportunities I would not have otherwise had. Amazing opportunities, and it also burnt my life to the ground. And that's Pluto. I mean, it is it's a terraformer. Is how I will sometimes describe it. Yeah, it will make a garden.
And you see, like, this is where, if you're, because you said earlier, one thing at a time. So, yeah, you learn there. It's like learning to play chess. Oh, the bishop goes like this, and but then the more you learn the individual pieces or the individual planets, slowly your subconscious starts to make more sense, so that you instantly see things but a lot of it is because you're immersed in the language. You just know. So for instance, this, I do this all the time. So I know that from the mid 90s to the 95 to 2000, that's just a Pluto siege, because Pluto is going through all your stuff, conjoining and then squaring the Mars. Is, it's really, really active. The relationship part of the chart is just totally lit up. But also for you, it becomes this really great thing to ponder and go back and what was going on there. What are the Pluto patterns? What did I do well? Could I have done better? Because otherwise, then you get into the other trap where you think, well, if that planet did this, it'll do it again. Not necessarily. It'll do a version. You always try to get a better version the next time because you won't make the same mistakes. But that's just me knowing. I know Pluto went into Sagittarius in 95, did a bit back and forth, but then starts ticking through, triggering everything. And for you, it's massive because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planets involved in the, which is a lot. It's a lot.
Yes.
And they're in a T-square, which means change is coming whether you like it or not.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Going to be, yeah.
There was ChatGPT, and what was the other thing I wanted to quickly mention? I can't remember the second one. So I just want to, 2 things, just to everybody out there. One of the things I have, one of the things that getting your astrology chart can be, you may, if you're getting your astrology chart and you're looking at it, you may be thinking, oh, I guess I'm kind of like this, I'm kind of like that. My astrology chart has actually helped me to say, okay, I want to accomplish this. I want to do this. What talents do I have? Where do I have natural energy? And using the different parts of my chart, where do I take action? Where's my Mars? Where am I taking action? What house is it? But also, what is the nature of my taking action? My Mars is in Pisces. I'm not going to be, I'm not here to beat anybody about the head. It's not, the soldier is not in its own sign of Aries, where it's the soldier, the god of war. It's like all the way around at the end, where it's like the priest, where he's gone through it all and he's got one foot on the other side and he's just like, I'm done with y'all. But I'll help while I'm here. But, so knowing these specific things about yourself, how do I take action? What do I love? How do I love? My love language it's more than just that. My emotional nature, if somebody is like, oh, I can't stand you being so clingy. I have a Cancer moon. What do you please?
Out of bounds too. Your moon is, the moon does this thing where for 9 years, it'll move in and out of bounds, so that out of bounds means it's far north or far south. Yours is really far north of the sun's like solstice point. So if you saw it in the sky, it's like sitting out there. So out of bounds moon, more moon, more feeling, more food, more like the emotions are bigger. And when you're younger, that's usually harder because, it's hard to control. But later, if you figure it out, as your self-awareness grows, it's actually better because there's more sensitivity. There's more, more attunement. So, but it is very Cancerian, the lunar thing is super strong. So you were born in that 9-year period when people have more of that, because then for 9 years, it doesn't do that. It stays in bounds the whole time. Anyways, continue.
I love Jen Lin on Jen Lin Tarot. She tells the story about how she has she's like a quadruple Aries. I mean, she's just got Aries to spare. And I guess she was in a relationship at one point, and the guy was like, can't you just, tone it down? Can't you just be, more feminine or more, and it's like, she's a quadruple, she's got Aries. You're not going to get that from, and she is a force to be reckoned with, and so talented. And that's one of the things I've always loved about astrology is it says we're supposed to be different from each other. We all have our unique
Oh, well,
talents.
totally. In fact, now that you say that, the extreme example of the difference in astrology, and this throws light on the notion that a chart is the interaction of you and what you choose to do with your cycles, so that there's no fixed way to express something. Like Mars is aggressive, or it can just be very direct. They're the
Hmm.
same thing, they're just different expressions, right? So
Hmm.
the extreme example is twins. I don't know, this probably applies, be a little more complicated if they're identical twins, but fraternal twins, they have essentially the same chart, and they're not the same people, and things don't happen to them in the same way. And that could be a way a scientist could attack astrology and say, you're not making any sense because these two people have the same chart, and look at what's happening to them. It's because they express different parts of the chart. Could be sibling rivalry, who knows? There'll be like a part of the chart that is more introverted or more extroverted, and they choose roles, and then they get a different effect, right? So that's the independence of the person, the uniqueness channeling through the chart, but it's because they choose to express it in a certain way, but it'll still be their planets. Like both individuals will have the Saturn. It'll just happen. So for example, one person may be Saturn. I'm depressed. I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I'm the other person. No, I'm feeling like I just want to work on this. So because Saturn is the I'm going to purposely narrow my life and work, focus. That's the stellar Saturn at the very top, is put your mind on something and do it, even though maybe it's not as pleasant. You'd rather do something else. That's why Saturn
Hmm.
has the cross above the crescent. You work, right? But
Hmm.
there you would see a contrast and you'd say, well, this can't possibly be true. They have the same chart, because they do. I mean, if someone, for instance, shows you a chart and your chart is 5 degrees, 46 minutes, Gemini rising, if you have a twin and they're 6 degrees, 46 minutes rising, how are you different? You're not that different. It's pretty much the same chart, but you will not be doing the same things. Right?
Mm-mm.
So yeah,
No.
exactly. Anyway, yeah.
There's just one more thing I wanted to make sure I told people out there. AI right now, the state of AI as we are talking today.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Things like ChatGPT, it has learned enough that if you give it specifics, it can tell you, like, if I went to it and I said, I have Mars at 0 degree Pisces in my 10th house, it
Mm-hmm.
will say, oh, that means this. So you can ask. If you know your chart, you can ask. However, AI in the state it's in is awful. Awful. It's not just bad, it is terrible at understanding what the aspects are or doing math between the signs. You can't get there from here. So if you're like, oh, I've got this and this and this and this, what does that mean? I wouldn't trust it. Don't trust that. And I just wanted to let people know that, because you if you know anything about astrology, you'll look at it and you'll go, okay, two signs that are right next to each other can't be square. Sorry, can't.
That's right. Well, there is a way though. I have I have three sisters, but I'm talking about one sister now who she's an astrologer too, and she's really using a lot of AI. And she found this thing that she sent me. It's like a script. It's all these statements where you tell the AI how you want it to do things. And one of the
Mhm.
things you tell it is you're not allowed to make up anything. If you don't know 100%, don't say it. Because the AI, you're totally right. If you just throw an astrology question, it'll get some things right and some things make no sense. It'll say Pisces is squaring Aries, like you said, right?
Right.
But if you give it direction, but the experiment I ran is it took me a good 45 minutes of arguing with it, because I would say to it, this is not right. Go back and
Mhm.
I say, what ephemeris are you looking at? Go to the Swiss ephemeris. And finally it got it right. And there was a point where it was pretty scary, because I told her, okay, now do this thing. And it wrote this 1,500 word thing, really, really creative. In fact, it thought of things that I thought, wow, that's really good. I should have said that about whatever it was, right? But it took a while to train it and get it to. So be careful. Yeah, if you just use it willy nilly, it's not like, for instance, AI is most of the time, if you say to it, what is this drug, or it'll tell you it's the name of the drug and the
Right.
side effects. That's pretty easy. Astrology is more complicated, and yeah, you need to be more careful. But you could get quite a bit of information still about your
Oh,
planet. It's just that
absolutely.
that's not going to replace, though. The problem with all that is that you can't really learn astrology that way. Astrology, you have to learn through direct interaction, in my opinion, to each his own, but interacting with your own chart so you feel what is happening, and whether it's your moon, your Mars, you realize, oh yeah, that's what this is. That's what this is, the feeling, like, the heat of Mars, or the constraining effect of Saturn, or
Mhm.
Jupiter, the feeling of optimism that happens, or Neptune too. Neptune is it on the downside is confusing. I'll notice that if it's affecting me, okay, gee, like I can't make up my mind, and then so then how do I counteract that and all that? But you're experiencing it directly. You're not reading the fact that ChatGPT says Neptune is a confusing influence.
Right.
What does that even mean?
Right.
You need to feel it. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because the AI thing, this is going to grow
Mhm.
more and more and more. And I actually think it's a good thing, but it's like a tool that could also hurt you, like many things in life, that they're good up to a point, and then can become a
Mhm.
problem, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I meant to mention this earlier. Came back to me. Thing about because I have Saturn
Mm-hmm.
on my ascendant, which is how you present yourself to the world. People
Mm-hmm.
see on the outside, like the front door. I really like one of the things I really like about Capricorns is they don't embarrass me in public.
Well, all Capricorns, maybe you should invite Ted Cruz on your channel and test that theory, or Josh Hawley, and find out. There
In
are some
general, in
yeah,
general.
in general, right.
But that's the thing, in public, I have that Saturn there, and yeah, I've got this huge Sagittarius stellium that is always like color, and let's do the thing, and let's go, and let's look over there, and what's this, and let's try it. And
Yeah,
I've got Saturn on my ascendant that is like, hold on.
So don't you remember that you and I talked years ago about how, because you have the colors actually are remarkable this way, sometimes even comedic, in the
Mhm.
way people. So black and orange tarot, Saturn is black for sure, black or very dark, and it's rising. But Gemini is orange, black and orange, and that's the front door. That's the, So
Yeah.
people do their thing. They may be conscious of it or less conscious. Like for instance, I know this Gemini, and I was kind of wondering. So then I saw he has this old Volkswagen car, bright orange. So and Gemini is the the sign of transportation and
Mhm.
cars. So that's an example of how it came out there. I know another person, what they did, this Gemini woman, she became a manager, and she painted the whole office orange, and people were, they thought like, what the hell, this is not the right color. And years later she changed it to green when she realized she was expressing her Gemini energy a little too much. But it has that way of, and because you have that part of the zodiac rising, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, that's the most colorful type of energy. Like if you were Sagittarius or Capricorn rising with Saturn there, you probably wouldn't be as color. Sagittarius itself, yes, it's more freewheeling, but it is a blue type of energy. It goes more to that other end of the spectrum. But the moon in Cancer is another orangey, so that's what rises. That's the sense of what you like to relate to, right? So yeah, it's fun. It's kind of that kind of thing, though, is more fun than, I mean, I don't know that it's super insightful, but it's interesting, I think. Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for coming on. It's been so much fun. Thank
Oh,
you.
it's a pleasure. Yeah, we haven't connected in a while. We should connect more often. It's fun, and we can keep up on the situation that we're all traversing through. Which yeah,
And
I mean, I can.
I force actual charts on you more than I think a lot of other people do.
Well, I mean, but you're doing that's the thing. You're doing it, so it's normal. It's natural that you would, because you're tracking, the planets. So
Yeah.
yeah. No, and by the way, charts are charts are, that's what you do. Even when you were, this thing that I said today, it was because of the chart that you put up. It hadn't occurred to me until today that the eclipse, the way it's working, it's helping to highlight the free speech thing in the US chart because of the assistance to the Mercury. Sometimes you just miss I saw other patterns, but I missed that one. I think that's actually very good, very helpful, very supportive, very protective, because it's a important amendment. I mean, it's the first one. I wonder what they were thinking when they made it the First Amendment. I think they were pretty intense about the fact that it should be respected. So anything that helps it is good, I think.
And in a few days, just so everybody's aware, on the 24th here in the U.S., early in the morning, Mars is going to be square Pluto. You have you've got the god of war and the god of the underworld, and they're going to be square, which means they're going to be, at best, they're going to be frenemies. I mean, they're just going to be on each other's nerves. At worst, it can mean some violence. It can lead to violence, but that's not a guarantee. But there's going to be, just so you know, so like 3 days from now, there's going to be some if things are feeling very tense, that is probably a lot too, just what's happening in the sky. But also, until I ran the chart, I didn't realize the moon was going to be in the same place as that Mars. So the emotions and this action, this is going to be squaring the Pluto. So it will not only be tense, but there may be intense emotions. And the moon and Mars are going to be in Scorpio, which is also an intense sign emotionally. So just be aware that that's what's coming in the astrological weather. All right.
That's well put. Very well put. And especially if any of that is doing something to one of your planets, because then you get a direct experience of it.
Oh yeah. All right. So thank you, everybody. Please do follow Proactive Astrology. You will get insight you won't get anywhere else. And do really consider becoming a patron of Andre. Like I said, I am a patron of his. I have been for years. And there's money coming out of my wallet every month because he's so good. So I recommend it.
Thank you.
All right. And other than that, it's 1:38 p.m. here in Chicago. At 3 o'clock, I'll be over on the Creative Sprints channel. As always, Sarah should be there too. And we get together there every day. We do 6 25-minute sprints where we focus on our own projects. And everybody can focus on their own projects. And we take 5 minutes, let our brains recover. We encourage each other. And then we just do rinse, repeat. Show up every day, making progress on what we want to do. So you're always welcome to come by, make some progress on what you want to do. It's a great community. So you've got a great community here. You've got community there. You've always got somewhere to go. So, all right, that will do it for today. I will be back tomorrow. As always, please remember you are not alone. We are in this together. And there are good days ahead. There are. So hang in there. And I will see you later, as always. All right. Take care. Take care. Thank you. Thank you, Andre.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, yeah. Rob says Creative Sprints today occurs just after the eclipse. It's a great start to a new cycle. I like that.